Alright guys, it is currently about 8:30 on Sunday night. The brackets just got revealed 2.5 hours ago, and I know that I said in this video will probably not be uploaded until probably Wednesday morning at the earliest, because I'm going to be out of town for the next few days. I've got the Pacer game tomorrow night to go to, plus I'm going to be staying overnight in outside of here, outside Monticello on Tuesday morning. So I will probably upload this for you guys on Wednesday morning. Alright, getting that out of the way first. This is the bracket breakdown. This is where, and boy guys, as I posted on the channel a little bit ago today, I got a lot of thoughts to share on especially a lot of things, a lot of hot topics that have been thrown around obviously after the brackets were revealed. First thing that I want to mention is basically for the second straight year, I only missed one at-large team. You guys probably know from my rant last year who I missed last year was Middle Tennessee. This year, though, I think the committee did a pretty good job. I'm really, I wasn't off by much. Let's just say that. I had Southern Methodist, SMU. I had them in the field, based on how well they had played in the American, based on the wins they had had. But as I mentioned to someone else that commented on the last video, my final projection, they disagreed with me on where I had SMU seated in the field. But I mentioned the fact that they had lost to Houston in the quarterfinals, and that schedule was going to play a big role. Well, that turned out to matter because SMU's non-conference schedule wasn't very good. So they were out of the field, and NC State, who I had as the last team out of the field, got the nod in. I think when they beat Syracuse in the ACC quarterfinal, that was a huge win for them. And the fact they played Duke so close, I think, was also very beneficial to NC State's tournament hopes. So that's why they were in and SMU was out. So that's the only at-large team that I missed this year. And again, I picked some of the conference finals, wrong, but I didn't expect Louisiana to beat Georgia State, but I figured I had them on the same seed line. I had them, if they'd won that game, I had them as a 14 as well, which is where they ended up. So as a whole, I also got not too bad. I also got 42 of the exact seeds correct out of 68, which if you do the math, that's 62%, so that's not terrible. A couple of them I was off by, again, maybe one or two lines, so it really wasn't that off in that regard. And I got 4 matchups exactly right, nailed them. Well, okay, not exactly on one, but I got 4 matchups. I got 3 exactly by the seeds and where they were at. I got let's see, where did I have it? Here we go. I got Gonzaga, Oklahoma State right. West region. I got Wisconsin American right, although they're in the West region, not the Midwest, but I got that right. And I got, what else did I get? Oh, Creighton, Louisiana. Creighton, Louisiana. I had them in the South, so again, West region, but I got that matchup right. And then the only matchup I got, but it was not the exact seeding, was North Carolina Providence. I had them 5-12. They ended up being 6-11. So maybe that just goes to show, again, how maybe Providence moved up the seed line after they won the Big East tournament title. So the really hot topic of debate seems to be Louisville. And, the committee gave them a 4. I'm absolutely appalled that the committee gave Louisville a 4 seed. I didn't expect them to be, here's what I'm going to say. I didn't expect them to be a 1 because I figured it was down to Michigan and Virginia for that final number 1 seed, or even Duke if they had won that game today in the ACC final. But I did not expect Louisville to be pushed that far down the seed line. The way they were playing of late, I thought at least a 2-3 at the worst, but not a 4. So I was definitely shocked at that. I was shocked at a couple other things. Iowa being one of the last 4 in. That I had them as one of the last 4 buys because I did adjust to how they've been playing of late, struggling, trying to really play their way out of the field, losing to Northwestern in the first round of the Big Ten tournament. That certainly was a surprise to me as well. And they have a tough matchup in that opening round game against Tennessee. That's not going to be easy for Iowa to play against. So I was definitely surprised at that they were that far down the committee's seed line. Other things that I thought about: New Mexico getting a 7. You know, again, after winning the Mountain West tournament title, beating San Diego State, who's a 4. That was definitely a surprise to me. VCU getting a 5. I also thought that was very generous to VCU after considering the fact, you know, that they're on the same line as St. Louis, who won their conference regular season title, and you know, and the fact they lost to St. Joe's in the A10 tournament final. I thought they'd at least drop down to a 6, maybe a 7, but I was surprised to see them with a 5. And they were one of the first teams revealed when they revealed that South region. I look at the 5 line, it's VCU. I'm like, whoa, did not expect that. So I was quite surprised by that. Also, Michigan State and Michigan, their seeding. It was clear to show that Michigan was in the discussion for the 1 seed because they only dropped down to a 2 after losing to Michigan State. I thought they'd maybe drop down to a 3, and then maybe you move Michigan State on the 3 line or maybe even above that. But the committee stuck to their guns. I had Michigan State, I think, as a 4 going into the day anyway. And I had them playing Delaware, which is what ended up happening. So I had them inexact, but I went ahead. When Michigan State beat Michigan, I actually moved Michigan State up on the seed line and then dropped Michigan a little bit, thinking Michigan State would get a 3, but they held at a 4. So I was really glad to see Nebraska get in. Being from Big Ten country, I'm really glad that the committee rewarded Nebraska for the way they had played of late and the job again that Tim Miles has done there. I was so happy to see that as well. And BYU getting in, that was nice to see. Even though that Kyle Collinsworth had the torn ACL, it was still nice to see the committee reward them. So a lot to break down here. And again, I'm filling out the first bracket on my sheets. This is the gut feeling bracket. You see it right at the top of the screen. This is the gut feeling. This is the one that I always fill out first. The one I'm usually most confident in. It doesn't win my overall brackets. I told you guys I play 7 brackets on Tournament Challenge and on ESPN, and usually it doesn't win, but it's usually in the top 2, top 3. So, and I got the champion right last year, so I did have Louisville going all the way. So this year, though, oh, and by the way, another point to make: Wichita State's region is the region of death. Okay, and I had a feeling that this was going to happen, that the committee was going to stack that region and really test Wichita State. I mean, you put Kentucky, Louisville, Duke, and Michigan all in that same region. And the committee, I just talked to the committee member. He told me, no, we didn't stack it. Are you kidding? No one's going to buy that. No one's going to buy that explanation. You stacked that bracket to test Wichita State, and they're going to be tested. They're really going to be tested in that region. It really makes me weary of how to pick that region because that is going to be a lethal region. There's going to be gnashing of teeth and toughness in that region because, oh, that's going to be scary. So a lot to break down, a lot to get to. Again, I always pick this first. So it's time to dissect. It's time to get in this. It's time to really get in the bracket mood. Now that it's filled out and revealed, it's time to really look this over. So now I know that some brackets you'll have where you actually pick the opening round games. I think on most challenges you don't. You just pick the team that you think is, whoever comes out of that, whether they advance or not in the second round. So, but I go ahead. I do pick the first 4. And again, I said opening round again. I'm stupid on that. It's first 4. The first 4 again. So, starting with the 16 seeds. I look at Albany against Mount St. Mary's. Obviously, Mount St. Mary's is the big surprise, of course, coming with that run to win the Northeast. But I was really impressed with the way Albany played in the America East final, and they have tournament experience. They were here actually last year winning the America East, and they played in the first round, lost to Duke, of course. But I really like the fact that they bring experience to the tournament. Mount St. Mary's a nice story, nice run, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Albany in that game. The other playing game, Cal Poly taking on Texas Southern. Cal Poly is kind of like the Liberty of last year, coming into the tournament with a losing record, 13-19. But they ran roughshod through the Big West tournament. They knocked out the 2 seed, the 1 seed, and then the 5 seed in the final to get to this point. Playing a Texas Southern team that really, someone had to win the SWAC. Southern couldn't win it because they were ineligible. Flopped against Prairie View, in my opinion, in that semifinal game or quarterfinal game, whatever it was. So really, again, I haven't seen both play a whole lot. But the SWAC is always known for being a very slow conference in terms of scoring, and Cal Poly has guys that can really make a lot of shots and score. I was quite impressed when I watched them play. So I'm going to go ahead, and I think the Cal Poly surprise dream lives on for at least one game. I have them beating Texas Southern. Midwest, so these are all Midwest region, by the way. So then we get to the last 4 in games of the first 4. NC State taking on Xavier. NC State, with I think his name's TJ Warren, is one of the best players in the country. Great scorer, great shooter. He really carries that NC State team. Led them strongly through the ACC tournament. And the fact that NC State's coming with momentum, playing well of late, they're going up against a Xavier team that, again, as I mentioned when we were, projecting the field during the early Tracking the Madness projections, Xavier's been really hit or miss. Sometimes one game you'll get a Xavier team that plays really well. Other times you'll get a team that doesn't play so well at all. So, that concerns me. I usually always go with the team that's riding the hot hand. And in this case, for me, it's NC State. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Wolfpack in that one to knock off the Xavier Musketeers. And then finally, I mentioned Iowa taking on Tennessee. Again, that's a tough matchup for Iowa. And Tennessee is coached by Conzo Martin. By the way, he played at Purdue. He knows the Big Ten. He knows how the Big Ten plays. He knows its style. And, again, Tennessee is a team that, again, has been, really hit or miss. But do remember, they blew out Missouri. They beat Virginia, a #1 seed, by 35. This is a team that is going to be really a tough out for some teams, even going forward in the field. And Iowa, the way they've played of late, the only way Iowa's going to stay in that game is if their players like Devin Marble, like the guys they have, the big guy underneath. If their scorers are doing well, that's the only way they're going to stay in that game. Otherwise, I think Tennessee is just a little bit too strong. So I'm going to go with Tennessee. And I know, again, I'm picking against the Big Ten, but sometimes you got to be journalistic on these approaches. I'm going to go with Tennessee in that game. All right, so now we get into the actual bracket. So then in the South region, I would have Florida playing Albany. Again, usually, remember, folks, bracket tip, a 16 has never beaten a 1. It hasn't happened yet. I know there's been some close calls, but it hasn't happened yet. This year, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. There was one discussion that I had today that said if Michigan or Duke was a 1 seed, potentially they could possibly be upset by a 16. But with the 4 #1s we have this year, I really can't see a scenario where any of them lose first round, except maybe Virginia, just because they're the weakest #1. But I can't see Florida losing their first game. I can't see Arizona losing their first game. I can't see Wichita State losing their first game. So I'm going to go ahead and make them pretty much automatics into the next round. So Florida, we'll go ahead. So yeah, I'll just put them in once we go to the regions. But I definitely think Florida's going on to the 3rd round. Florida is so impressive. Scotty Wilbekin, good players all around Florida. Billy Donovan does a great job of coaching. Good for them. Colorado and Pitt. Again, the hot debate with Colorado has always been, the team without Spencer Dinwiddie. How they played. The problem is though they're not really the same team without him. Yes, they've done okay, but not the team they once were. Pitt is riding a huge momentum swing. Pitt had a great ACC tournament. So again, based on that fact alone, I'm going to have to go with the Pitt Panthers to win that game. VCU Stephen F. Austin. This one, again, it concerns me. And there's always usually every year another bracket tip. A 12 usually always beats a 5. There's always either one or multiple, and this one I think potentially could be that situation. Yes, we know that VCU with Shaka Smart coaching, the Havoc defense, we're aware of that, but the way that they played against St. Joseph's today, the way the A-10 drags things out and is slow paced, that concerns me. As I've said on here before about teams like St. Louis, it's very tough. And Stephen F. Austin, yes, they can play in a number of different ways. They're on a long winning streak. They're 31-2. They destroyed Sam Houston State in the Southland final, and the thing of it is, yes, they can win a number of different ways. They can either win with high-scoring games, or they can slow the pace down and really make it tough on you. I think that's going to be a tough game, but I think this is one of those situations where I just think VCU here caught a really bad rap, a surprising seed, and the fact that they had to get a tough matchup like this. So based on that alone, I am going to go with Stephen F. Austin in the upset. I think that, I'm just so impressed by the way they've played of late that I think VCU just got a bad rap there. UCLA and Tulsa. Tulsa, great story making the NCAAs with Danny Manning as the head coach out of Conference USA, but I've been high on UCLA for a long time now. I actually had them winning the Pac-12 final over Arizona. I think UCLA is very underrated, and I'm going to go with the Bruins there. Plus, they're playing in their own pretty much in their own backyard in San Diego, not a stone's throw pretty much from Los Angeles. So I'm going to go with the Bruins there. The 6-11 is very intriguing in the South region. This is not only an in-state rivalry, but two very solid teams with Ohio State and Dayton. Dayton avoided the first 4. I think, and I said on here, it would have been nice to see maybe Dayton playing in the first 4 on their home floor, but I think because of the fact they just played so well of late, I think it's not a surprise to me to see Dayton get in as an 11th seed. Dayton has played very well against some good teams, and they're going to be fired up to play Ohio State, but I think Ohio State, the fact that they have just, they have Aaron Kraft, they have really good shooters. Thad Matta well coaches that team very well. Now they did struggle against Purdue in the quarterfinals of the Big Ten tournament. Then they rallied. They played a great game against Michigan. Dayton's going to have their hands full a little bit. That's a real challenge. So because of that, I am going to go with the Buckeyes on that one. Syracuse taking on Western Michigan. The question with this game is which Syracuse is going to show up. Are we going to get the Syracuse team that collapsed down the stretch and lost games to the likes of Boston College and Georgia Tech, or are we going to see the dominant force early in the season that started off like 20-0? Are we going to which team's going to show up? Now Western Michigan, certainly no pushover. Certainly they were the top seed in the MAC tournament. They won the MAC tournament, beat also a very good Toledo team that's probably going to make a lot of noise in the NIT. Western Michigan, they played a high-scoring game in Toledo. I was very impressed with the way that they played. The problem, though, is going to be that, again, Syracuse, that 2-3 zone. Very tough to play against, very tough to prepare for. And if you're Western Michigan, you're not playing a team that's used to playing that style of defense, it can be very tough on you. So I think in the end, Syracuse is going to be able to win that game. So I will go with the Cuse to advance to the third round. 7-10, New Mexico taking on Stanford. New Mexico is going to play now, I think, with a big chip on its shoulder and with a lot to prove, because I'm sure they weren't happy about their seeding either. The fact that they, win the Mountain West title, and yet their team that they beat is 3 spots, 3 seed lines higher than them. They're going to play with a lot of motivation and a lot of intensity, I feel. Don't get me wrong, Stanford's had a great season, great amount of quality wins in their conference, a very strong team. But I just have a feeling now that UNM is going to really play with a kind of like the Wichita State playing angry mentality. So I'm going to go with the Lobos there. And then Kansas taking on Eastern Kentucky in the 2-15. If this were Belmont and if Eastern Kentucky had lost to Belmont, if this were Kansas Belmont, I would pick Belmont in a heartbeat for the upset, because the fact that Kansas is missing one of its big pieces in Joel Embiid. We don't know how long he's going to be out with that back fracture. You know, I figured Kansas wouldn't be off the 2 seed line because of that. So clearly, with the committee, that wasn't an issue for them with the injury situation. But I don't think Eastern Kentucky, granted they are a good shooting, they're just as good a shooting team. They were able to beat Belmont in the OVC final. But I think Kansas will still have enough horses to at least get through Eastern Kentucky. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Jayhawks in that one. So what I'm going to do, we're just going to go region by region first, and then we'll go Final Four. I think that's usually how I've done in the past. So sticking with the South, the third round games, Florida-Pittsburgh. Again, I'm going to stick with Florida. Again, I think too strong overall. They're the overall #1 for a reason. They were challenged by Kentucky today, I got to admit, and that was a good performance by Kentucky. But to me, again, Florida, well-rounded, talented team, plays well together. Pitt has had a great run, but I think Florida's too much for them. Stephen F. Austin, UCLA, again. I think yes, Stephen F. Austin does slow down teams, but I think at that point they run into a buzzsaw. They run into a really talented offensive team in UCLA, and I'm going to go with the Bruins there. Ohio State, Syracuse. This here is again here I might be showing just a tiny bit of Big Ten bias, but here's the thing: Ohio State can play at slow paces. I mean, again, they scored 63 and 62 in their Big Ten tournament wins, or at least the games where they scored 59 against Michigan. But they're known for playing slow paces, and I think they can be prepared for that 2-3 zone defense. It just worries me of how Syracuse has stumbled so much down the stretch. They don't look like a team that can make a deep run in the tournament. So because of that fact alone, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Ohio State to get to the Sweet 16 and knock off the Orange. I just have not been impressed with what I've seen from Syracuse lately. And for me, again, I take teams that are either hot, I base teams that are hot or cold, and I just don't see Syracuse right now as playing their best basketball right now. And then New Mexico and Kansas. Again, I'm going to go with that angry mentality. I'm going to actually take New Mexico. And Kansas is really disappointing the last few NCAA tournaments. You know, yes, they still have Andrew Wiggins, but again, the fact that Embiid is not going to be there because of the injury, and again, the fact that they run into an angry New Mexico team, I don't like that draw at all for Kansas. So I'm going to go with New Mexico there. Florida, UCLA. Well, I would love to pick the Bruins here. Again, I just think Florida is just so well-rounded that I think that'll be a really close, tight game. But I'm going to go with the Gators there as well. And then Ohio State, New Mexico in the 6-7. This one, a lot of storylines in it. But again, I just think because of the fact they're going to be playing with so much intensity and spunk, it's going to be, again, I think New Mexico can score a lot more than Ohio State. They're very talented on offense. I'm going to go New Mexico over Ohio State. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to Florida. I think this is a pretty easy region for the Gators. It's clearly, I think, in my opinion, the weakest. I think that, you know, Florida is just going to tear through this. I can't see them being stopped at any point. So I'm going to go with the Florida Gators to win the South and get to Dallas. So the East region now. East region in New York. The semifinals in New York. Virginia taking on Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina, by the way, is a great story. Their coach has now taken a fourth different team to the NCAA tournament. He also did it with South Alabama, Auburn, and Clemson. So a great story there. But in this case, I think UVA just too strong. They're playing in Raleigh, and I will have them again. If any 16 is a shot at beating a one, again, it is probably Coastal Carolina because Virginia is the weakest #1 seed. But I think Virginia, though, after the way they handled Duke today, I think they're at least going to maybe go on a little bit of a run. I like them to win that game. Memphis, George Washington. This is really intriguing for me. Two really good basketball teams here. Memphis, of course, with Josh Pastner as coach, a strong conference in the American, taking on a GW team that again has had a nice bounce back year. Maurice Creek playing well for them. But again, I'm kind of seeing a trend. To me, I think the 9s are a little bit stronger than the 8s this year. I think across the board, the 9 seeds are a little bit stronger. So I'm going to go with G-Dub. I think that, that'll be, again, a very close, grinded out game. But I've just been so impressed by George Washington and the way they've played. I will take them to beat Memphis. Cincinnati and Harvard. You got to commend the job that Tommy Amaker has done with the Harvard Crimson, getting them back to the NCAA tournament now for 3 straight years. They had an upset last year. They knocked off. They were at the 14 seed, knocked off 3 seed New Mexico. Maybe that is something the committee do with dropping it down to a 7. I don't know. But they're playing a Cincinnati team, again, well coached, top of the American, playmakers on the team. That's going to be a real tough out for Harvard to do. So in that case, I can't see the upset happening. I'm going to take Cincinnati. Michigan State and Delaware. Again, as much as I would, I love the fact that Delaware went through the Colonial all the way and had a great season. But Michigan State, I said it on here, you don't bet against Tom Izzo in March. Proved it again today. Won the Big Ten tournament. Pretty handily dominated Michigan through and through. I think they're really going to go on a sick kind of run, and I have them beating the Blue Hens, at least in their first game. North Carolina Providence in the 6-11. This one really concerns me. I like North Carolina a little bit. I've always been impressed by how they do. You guys know I don't like Duke that much. But the fact that Providence, again, riding the hot team, the fact that they had to win all those games to win the Big East tournament, beating Creighton in the final, kind of a team of adversity, if you will, has been through so much. Their coach has been through a lot. And again, North Carolina, when it comes to the tournament, hit or miss. They've been hit and miss all year. Early in the year, we were talking about NIT. Then now they went on a run. So again, which Carolina team is going to show up? That's my concern with this. But at the end of the day, I think that the right Tar Heel team is going to show up. As much as I would love to pick Providence, I'll probably pick Providence some of my other brackets because this game is so tough to pick. But I will go ahead and take North Carolina in this one. Iowa State and North Carolina Central. The Eagles, great job. First time in the NCAA tournament out of the MEAC. 28-5, great season. But Iowa State is just way too tough as a whole. They've got talented players across the board. I will go with the Cyclones. UConn and St. Joe's. This is now a really intriguing one. Again, St. Joe's winning the Atlantic 10 today, beating VCU. But I've always been impressed with Connecticut. Again, Shabazz Napier, Boatwright, the guys that they have left over. Very talented team across the board. I think it's going to be a real tough out for St. Joseph's. I will take UConn in that one. And then finally, Villanova and Milwaukee. Villanova was pretty much going to be either on the 1 or the 2 line, regardless of what happened. Yes, the loss to Seton Hall early was definitely an odd one. But I think Villanova as a whole, again, just way too strong a team. Milwaukee had a great run through the Horizon League tournament. But I'm going to go ahead and take Villanova in that game. So then my third round games, UVA taking on George Washington. Again, even though G-Dub is a nice story and a great team, I think still Tony Bennett's team, UVA, just a little too strong. I'm going to go ahead and take them to at least get to the Sweet 16. But then here's where I think they stumble. Because then I've got Cincinnati taking on Michigan State. And not only am I going to pick Michigan State to win that game over Cincinnati, I'm going to have them beating Virginia in the Sweet 16. Because again, Tom Izzo finds a way. And now that his team's pretty much close to fully healthy, Brandon Dawson today was sick. Gary Harris today was sick. He's sick as in good. Payne, Appling. These guys, now that he's got a full roster back, Michigan State is going to be as dangerous as ever. They might be more dangerous than Louisville on the 4 seed line, or even UCLA. So this Michigan State team is one not to be messed with. And I think they will not only get to the Sweet 16 by beating Cincinnati, but they will beat Virginia in the Sweet 16 and then get to the Elite Eight. Bottom half, North Carolina, Iowa State. As much as I would love to pick North Carolina there, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Iowa State is too powerful, too strong. So I'm going to go with Iowa State. Connecticut and Villanova, an old school throwback to the old Big East days. They're showing Requiem to the Big East right now on ESPN, that 30 for 30 documentary about the old school Big East days. That would be, again, a great matchup. But again, as much as I'd love, I'll probably, again, in some of the upset brackets, I'll probably pick UConn in a surprise. But I think Villanova just too strong as a whole. But here again is where I think an upset happens. And I know this region, so now I have chalk. I have the 4 top seeds here. I went really squirrely in the South with a 6 and a 7. But I'm going to go chalk here in the East because I think this region is really top heavy. So 1, 4, 3, 2. But I don't think Villanova gets there. I'm going to go with Iowa State to beat Villanova. I'm really impressed by how Iowa State has played. And Nova's really, again, stumbling down the stretch. So then I have Michigan State taking on Iowa State in the regional final. This is offense versus offense. This is a battle of two strong, offensive-minded teams. Who's gonna have the better defense? Who's gonna be more well-rounded? Oh, this is so tough. But at the end of the day, this is so hard. Look at me. I'm agonizing over a bracket. This is so tough. Oh, man. All right, you know what? Sometimes you got to resort to tough level tactics, and I know this is normally gut feeling, but my gut can't even decide this one. This is how tough this is with Michigan State, Iowa State. Roll the dice of death right here. This is you're going to decide the winner of this game. Dice. This is it. This is just so tough for me. I can't believe I'm putting this on a dice roll, but that's how tough it is. I can't choose it. It's so hard. They're both really good teams. Michigan State has like 4 good players. Iowa State has 3 good players and good coaching. I mean, this is so hard. And I've seen both play this year. This is so tough. All right, so first dice roll for Michigan State. 5. Okay? So now the only way I'm going to pick Iowa State is if I roll a 6. And I roll a 6. Of course. Dice of death says Iowa State. So I'm going to go with the Cyclones. All right. So there we go. There's the East region. Decided by the dice of death. All right. Moving on now to the West region. In the other side of the bracket. Top seed Arizona taking on Weber State. Again, Weber State, I watched them play in the Big Sky Final. They're a good shooting team, but too much power from Arizona. I'm going to go with the Wildcats. Gonzaga taking on Oklahoma State. As I mentioned on here, I've been really impressed by how Oklahoma State has played of late. The fact that Marcus Smart is playing really well. Don't get me wrong, Gonzaga, great team, great season. Mark Fiores does a great job getting the team in the tournament. But this is a bad matchup for them. And I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. Oklahoma taking on North Dakota State. This is another one where I see potentially a 5-12 upset. I watched North Dakota State play in the Summit Final against IPFW. Very, very talented team. Gets up and down the floor quickly. Can score in a heartbeat. Capitalizes off of turnovers. This is a very talented team that I saw play. Their RPI is high. It's like in the 40s. And Oklahoma, I just don't know what to make of Oklahoma. I really, they're a decent team, but I'm really kind of confused. I don't think they'll make a deep run. So there's no one we're going to pick the upset. I'm going to take the North Dakota State Bison, my second 12/5, to knock out the Sooners. And then San Diego State taking on New Mexico State. Again, the job that Steve Fisher has done at San Diego State has been outstanding. 29-4 this season. Even though they lost the Mountain West Finals, still a good team. Mexico State won the WAC pretty handily against Idaho. This is, again, the big animal that San Diego State has. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Aztecs to win that game. Baylor, Nebraska. This is now a really intriguing 6-11 matchup. You know, both these teams are riding hot streaks of late. Baylor really had to go on a hot tear just to get in the tournament. But they've beaten. I think they have 10 top 50 wins against RPI top 50 teams. That's huge. That's immense for a team that's a 6 seed. But then you look at Nebraska. Again, I was so ecstatic when I saw their name in the field, getting into the field. The job again that this team has done. 3 top 50 wins. I had them as my last 4 coming into the day, and that really didn't change. But they avoided the first 4 in Dayton, so props to them for that. You know, it's all going to be about, you know, Pettaway for Nebraska. How's he going to go against a Baylor team that, again, is riding this hot hand? But the problem is the selection committee was very kind to Baylor. They're playing this game in San Antonio. The Baylor fans are going to be, you know, rowdy, excited, and I think Baylor's going to feed off of that. So, as much as I'd love to advance Nebraska in the field, because of the fact that the committee rewarded Baylor in kind, I'm going to go with Baylor in that game. Creighton taking on Louisiana. Doug McDermott. I mean, that's really all I have to say. I mean, when he is on his game and when he is playing well, Creighton is just a team that does not want to be messed with. You don't want to see Creighton in your bracket. You really don't. And you know, even though I lost that game to Providence in the Big East final, I've just been so impressed by the way Creighton has played. Again, got to give props to Louisiana. They're a tough Sun Belt team. I watched them play the latter stages against Georgia State today. I played really solid basketball, but too much Creighton. I really like the Blue Jays. I'm going to go with them. Oregon, BYU. This now actually probably to me becomes one of the easier games to pick in the tourney because, A, like I mentioned, BYU just lost Kyle Collinsworth this season with that torn ACL, and B, Oregon is playing its best basketball at least since the start of the season because Oregon, remember, went perfect in the non-conference. They were like 12-0. Then they started stumbling in the Pac-12 season, and then it proceeded to win 8 of their last 9 games. So Oregon is coming in hot. BYU not so much, and now they're kind of weighted down with that with the injury. So I think for me, Oregon's going to make quick work of BYU. I'm going to go with the Ducks on that one. Wisconsin taking on American. Wisconsin, you know, when it comes to the tournament, usually a very strong team. They're playing their best this time of year. American had a nice run to the Patriot League, upset Boston U in the final. But again, I think Bo Ryan's team just too strong, so I'm going to go with the Badgers. So the third round, here is where I think the first number 1 seed falls. I think this is a bad draw for Arizona. They did not get any favors from the committee. They didn't, and neither did Wichita State. On this side of the bracket is death because this is just so tough to pick. I think Oklahoma State, the way that they've been playing of late, again, Marcus Smart playing out of his mind, the fact that they had to work that hard to get in the field, I think he's going to have a field day. I think the fact that he's carrying that team, I'm going to go ahead and pick the surprise. I'm going to take Oklahoma State to beat Arizona in the third round. North Dakota State taking on San Diego State. Here, I just think that, again, the way that San Diego State plays offense, it's a tough style. North Dakota State certainly able to keep up maybe with for like a half. But again, at the end of the day, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take San Diego State. Baylor and Creighton, again, I think McDermott's going to be on his game for this tournament. I think he's going to again, really show why Creighton went to the Big East, went to the bigger conference. Baylor's had, again, a great run, but I think too much Dougie McBuckets in the situation. I'm going to go with Creighton. And then Oregon, Wisconsin. Again, it's a concerning matchup for me because, again, this kind of happened last year with when Oregon played St. Louis, and they played a defensive-minded team that's not fond of playing high-scoring games. Wisconsin normally does not play high offensive-minded games, although this year they've gotten in some of those games. So this is going to be a really tough out for Wisconsin, at least in my opinion. But in this situation, as much as I'd love to pick Oregon, I don't think it's going to happen here. I think Wisconsin's playing better of late. I will go with the Badgers. So then, in my regional, in the Sweet 16, I have Oklahoma State playing against San Diego State. I think Oklahoma State can keep it going for one more game. I really think Oklahoma State is one of the most dangerous 9 seeds that I've ever seen. I think that they are going to go on a Wichita State-like run. Remember, Wichita State was a 9 seed last year that made Final Four, and I think Oklahoma State could be in that very similar vein, the way that Marcus Smart is playing. So I have them knocking off San Diego State, and then Creighton going up against Wisconsin. Boy, this one. Boy, this one's tough as well. This is really a good documentary. I don't want to miss this for a minute. Oh. Okay, we're gonna stop there. Okay. So where was I? Okay, Creighton, Wisconsin. Creighton, Wisconsin. Again, the key in that game is going to be, how is Doug McDermott, going to perform against a very tough Wisconsin team that, usually prides itself on defense, plays really well. Oh, this is really tough. But to me, I think Creighton is just going to play with a big chip on its shoulder, and usually Wisconsin doesn't usually make deep runs in the tournament. They usually tend to crash out earlier than everyone expects them to. So for that reason alone, I'm going to take Creighton. There's just something about this Creighton team that I really like. And then regional final, Oklahoma State and Marcus Smart going against Creighton and Doug McDermott. You want to talk about a star-studded showdown? There you go right there. But I think Doug McDermott is going to want to end his career on a high note with at least getting to the Final Four. I think, again, they're kind of in that similar vein as Wichita State. I can see them making a run. Don't call me crazy, but I have Creighton winning the West region. I like the Blue Jays. I do. I've seen them play, and I'm so impressed with them. I know a lot of people are going to say, Arizona, you chalk pickers, you wussies. Have some guts. Make some extreme picks. You gotta. Sometimes you just gotta. Okay, so then finally Midwest region. I would have Wichita State playing, in this case I'd have them playing Cal Poly. Cal Poly, nice run. Great story. Yeah, Wichita State, better story, tougher team. So I'm going to go with the Shockers in that one. Kentucky and Kansas State. I said the 9s across the board mostly are tougher than the 8s. Not in this situation. To me, Kentucky is, they played Florida so well today. They're a very strong team overall. And they present a challenge in that next game too. So I'm going to go with the Wildcats. Then St. Louis playing I have them playing NC State. Again, it all depends on whether or not Warren can go off for NC State. And you know, St. Louis is a defensive-minded team. They really don't score much, and that happened when they played Oregon last year. So, you know, I'm really tempted there to pick NC State, and I believe they had a first-round upset last year when they were in 11 as well. So they can win games as a lower seed, and for that reason alone, I'm going to take NC State. I'm going to take NC State. Louisville, Manhattan. Again, you guys know now how I feel about Louisville. Got jobbed by the committee, playing their best basketball. I will take Louisville to beat Manhattan. Then UMass taking on, in my case, I'd have them playing Tennessee. You know, UMass, great story to get back here, but again, I think Tennessee just too well-rounded. So I have them winning that game. Duke taking on Mercer. Of course, it'd be the funniest thing if Mercer won this game. They are a good shooting team. They play very well up and down out of the A-Sun. But I can't see Duke losing that game. So I will take them there to beat Mercer. Texas, Arizona State. That one's really intriguing as well. But the job that Rick Barnes has done at Texas, I've been so impressed with the job that he has done. Arizona State kind of faded a little bit down the stretch. I'm going to go ahead and take Texas in that game. And then Michigan taking on Wofford out of the SoCon. Wofford, great run, nice story. But when Michigan's on their game, they're really tough to beat. And I'll go ahead and take them to beat the Terriers. Wichita State and Kentucky. Again, this is where it's going to get really, really tough for Wichita State. Kentucky is very well-rounded. And I would love, again, I'd love to pick Kentucky there. But I think, you know, yes, they're a bump in the road, but I don't think it gets really tough till the Sweet 16 for Wichita State. So, barely, but I'm going to go ahead and at least put Wichita State in the Sweet 16. But then I have them losing to Louisville. And again, you know, I'm sure revenge would be on their mind after the Final Four last year. But Louisville is playing some of its best basketball right now this season. And again, they're going to have even more of a chip on their shoulder after getting jobbed by the committee like this. So I think you know, Russ Smith is going to, you know, have that mentality of we got to go out now and prove why we should have been a higher seed. They're gonna prove that, well, we beat you once before, we can do it again. So I think they're gonna have that mentality. Playing in Indianapolis, they're both campuses not too far from Indianapolis, so I think the Louisville fans will be strong there. So I'm gonna go with Louisville to come out in that top half. Tennessee and Duke. I loathe it. I loathe doing it, but I can't. But honestly, realistically, I can't see Tennessee beating Duke, so I'm going to go ahead and take Duke to win that game. Really, Duke did not get much of a tough path here. I really think that they really got a break in this section. Texas and Michigan. I can't see Texas challenging Michigan. Michigan at all. Again, this region's so top-heavy that it's hard to really see any upsets in this region outside of St. Louis losing. I can't really see a whole lot there. So, then Duke going up against Michigan. Again, the concern with Michigan is which Michigan are we going to get? Which Michigan's going to show up? The team that, you know, is dominant in its wins, or the team that when they can't shoot the ball and their shots don't fall and the defense of opponents is on them, you know, what team are you going to get? So it's, you know, that just really, really concerns me. But because the fact that in some ways I'm biased, Big Ten, I don't like Duke, I'm going to go ahead and take Michigan there. But at the end of the day, it's Louisville. I mean, they're the defending national champions for a reason. To me, they're going to have that mentality of proving people wrong, proving the committee wrong. They're going to go out there and play well. They've already beaten Michigan once. They beat them last year as well. They know they can beat them again. They have that mentality. So the shooters are going to be strong for them. So at the end of the day, my Final Four, I have only one number one seed getting to the Final Four. But here's the thing: normally number one seeds don't really get to the Final Four very often. All four number ones haven't been there in at least a couple years now. Usually they don't get there anyway. It didn't happen last year. So I think we had the 1 in Louisville, the 9 in Wichita State. I think Syracuse was a 2 or 3. Michigan, I don't think, was a 1. So they were like a 2 or 3. So we didn't even have it last year. So you got to have some mix here, because I have a 1, 2 3s, and a 4. But a 4 that shouldn't be a 4. So at the end of the day, that's how I see it. So then I have Florida taking on Iowa State in one semifinal. Again, Florida's got 2 good players. How are they going to handle Iowa State's 3-headed monster with their 3 good players? But at the end of the day, again, I just think that Florida is just so well-rounded, so good, that I'm going to go ahead and put them in the final there as well. And then I have Creighton going up against Louisville. Michigan State, all of our guys picking the Spartans to win it. I like the historical connection. Everybody on ESPN is picking Michigan State to win it. Are you serious? Wow, that. Are you going to go off on your own, or are you too picking Tom Izzo to win the national championship? Take us through. Oh. Well, I would go with the Gators first of all, going against Syracuse. I think you look at Syracuse zone, keep playing Frazier, taking threes. That would definitely be intriguing. In the next matchup, we go down to Michigan State and Iowa State. I'll tell you this: so Creighton Louisville again. Doug McDermott going up against Russ Smith. This would definitely be a big time challenge for Doug McDermott's crew. But again, I'm gonna go hot hand. And again, I'm gonna take Louisville. Again, I think just the fact that they're so hot, I think that they certainly will make another run at it. So my national championship then is Florida and Louisville. This is two very well-rounded teams, 2 very well-rounded coaches. But the question is, it's so tough to repeat. I don't think we had a repeat champion in a long, long time. Everybody's picking Michigan State. I can't believe it. Everybody's on Michigan State. The first time that every analyst we've had picked Michigan State to win the championship. Well, not me. Although by a dice roll, but because I just think Iowa State's so well-rounded and good. So I have Florida, Louisville. Watch, I'll probably have Michigan State on my other brackets as a champion, but So this one, again, this is really, really tough. It's tough to repeat as a champion. It's really tough to repeat. Oh, man, this is tough. This is so tough. Do I dare go to the dice of death to decide this? I might. I mean, this is really hard, because I don't want to pick a repeat champion, but at the same time, again, Louisville with that mentality of trying to prove the committee wrong, but yet Florida really well-rounded and playing so well. Oh, this is hard. This is hard. See, I picked the overall number 1 last year. Got it right. Now I've got them here again because I don't think they're going to be tested. This is challenging. All right, Dice of Death. You're going to have to decide. This is really raining on my brain. This is really tough. All right. Who do you like? How about for Florida? 3. And Louisville? 1. Well, there you go. They don't want a repeat champion. So, I'm going to take the Florida Gators. And you know, I know in some ways it's kind of boring, you know, taking the overall #1 again, but I've been doing well with it. I've nailed the finalists the past couple years. I've done it, I think, in 05 with Illinois, North Carolina. I did, I think, last year with Louisville and I think Michigan. So this is. You know, again, this is the one where I really feel the most confident. This is now, it might not be the one that wins, but, and again, I'm usually so confident on this, I sign my name. I sign my name at the bottom of the bracket. Sign my name, sign my name. I do it. I do this every year. I'm so confident on this. There you go. There you go. My signature, signed, just like Barack Obama does. I have Florida as the national champion, beating Louisville. All right, guys. It's going to be fun either way. No matter who you guys pick, no matter what your brackets may look like, it's going to be a fun time, and I can't wait for it to get started. Again, thank you guys again so much for your support, your debates, everything. Just enjoy it. It's going to be a blast, and it's going to be a fun few weeks. It really, really is. This video will be uploaded probably Wednesday morning at the latest. That's what I plan. And then Thursday, new Jaguars quarterback quest video. That's the plan. So thank you guys again, and enjoy the tournament. God bless.